So it's now been just under 2 months since I switched from the 14 Pro Max down to Apple's 14 Plus, which I said was probably the most hated phone since the iPhone 6. So let's get into it. So to make this video easier on myself, I guess I'm just going to discuss it in the order of the pain points that people seem to bring up when they discuss why it is that they think the 14 Plus sucks. And just as a quick aside, this is the first time that I've used one of Apple's transparent cases. And I have to admit, I absolutely hated this case for about the first week or so because it was just so slippery when it came out of the box. But now that I've been using it for as long as I have and it's no longer slippery, I do kind of like the fact that you're able to see the color of the phone that you buy, because I feel most people these days, you spend so much time choosing the color of your phone and then you end up covering it with a case anyways. So it's just pretty cool to me to be able to have a phone case that shows the back off and still has MagSafe and all that stuff. And like I said, after a while, it's not as slick and slippery. So if you're someone that bought one of these, don't worry about it. Just keep using it for a couple of weeks and it'll figure itself out. So the first comment I always get anytime I discuss the iPhone 14 Plus is, why wouldn't you just spend $200 more and get yourself the iPhone 14 Pro Max with all the pro features? And okay, fine, that might be a sound argument, but at the end of the day, not every single person wants those quote unquote pro features in a heavier device with a completely different material build. I would say the majority of phone users just care about a phone that is light, has good battery life, fits in their pocket pretty well, has a good looking screen, takes decent photos, and just works. When you start talking about high refresh rates and 48 megapixel cameras, most people honestly just don't care about those things. So it's not knocking the iPhone 14 Pro Max, it's just this is geared towards a very specific type of person, where this is geared to a more generalized type of person who doesn't care for all the bells and whistles, but still wants the iPhone experience. So moving on to the cameras, the iPhone 14 Plus only has 2 cameras and it doesn't have that 48 megapixel sensor. The amount of people I know who have bought the iPhone 14 Pro that don't even know what Pro RAW is and have never taken a RAW photo or taken the time to edit their pictures in Lightroom speaks to the fact that not everybody needs an iPhone 14 Pro Max. I've been more than happy in using the camera on the back of this phone here. There have been times where I wish that I had the 2x zoom or the 3x zoom, but really and truly, has it changed the way that I use my phone? I would say no. If I wanted to zoom, I would just move closer to my subject and take the photo. At the end of the day, the pictures that this phone takes are still excellent photos compared to any other phone on the market. And just by having the 14 Pro or 14 Pro Max, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to take better photos. You still need to know what you're doing, and you still need to be able to edit those raw images in order to get the best out of your phone. And to speak to that point, a friend of mine reached out to me after upgrading her phone from the iPhone 12 up to the 14 Pro Max. She started taking a couple photos with it and she hated the way that the photos looked because of that computational photography effect where you take the photo, it looks how you wanted it for a second, and then Apple does its thing, rearranges the photo a little bit and changes the overall look of it, and things become blown out and don't look as nice as you intended them to be. And with her being someone that doesn't really edit her photos to begin with, spending more money doesn't always equate to having the better thing for you. Another comment that I get is, doesn't that refresh rate bother you? It's only 60 hertz. ProMotion does look very good. It's very aesthetically pleasing. I love the smoothness of all the movements when I'm using my phone, when I'm scrolling through text, whatever the case might be. I think it may have bothered me for the first 10 or 20 minutes when I switched over to the 14 Plus, but then it became something that I never really thought about. You'd be surprised how quickly your brain adjusts to things and is able to cancel out little minute details that don't really matter in your day-to-day. Now, moving on to the biggest point for me and what's most important when it comes to any phone, at least in my opinion, is the battery life. This is definitely a phone that you do not need to charge every day, and that probably is because of the lack of extra bells and whistles while still having the same body as the iPhone 14 Pro and just less functions to worry about. I'm able to go up to 36 hours without charging this phone at all, and I use my phone a lot. I may not be the power user who sits on their phone scrolling for 10 hours of screen on time per day. That's just not how I am. I post reels and TikToks daily, and that always involves me using CapCut, scrolling through social media, trying to find the right songs, whatever the case is, editing everything up and then posting it, and not only posting, but answering all the comments that I receive. So I am constantly on my phone. I just don't have the crazy screen on time as other people might have. But that being said, I do average between 6.5 and 7 hours of screen on time in a day. And not once have I wished that the battery life on this phone was better. I wish I could say the same for the iPhone 14 Pro Max. You would think that by spending more money on a pro phone that has all these premium materials that it's built out of, it's nice and sturdy and heavy, you'd expect that it would also have great battery life to pair with that, but it just doesn't. I don't know if it's just an issue with the 14 Pro lineup, because I do find that this battery has been far worse than the 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max. And hopefully that's something that gets fixed with the 15 lineup. But this battery life here just can't be trusted even on the max size phone. So all that is not to say that the experience with this phone has been 100% positive all the time. There are still some weird quirks to this phone that I just haven't been able to figure out. For example, there is a lot of time where the screen becomes unresponsive. I don't know if it's just my device, maybe I got a lemon, but for whatever reason, for example, I'll get a notification while I'm using the phone. I'll swipe it down to look at it, and then you should be able to just tap on that notification. It'll open the app, let's say Instagram or TikTok or whatever the case is, open the app for you, and then you're able to engage with whatever it is that it was trying to notify you about. With this phone, that maybe works, I want to say 1 in 4 times. So about 25% of the time, I'm able to actually click on my notification and the phone does what I want it to do. 75% of the time, I'll be tapping away on that notification and nothing will happen. Now, this doesn't only happen with notifications. I find that this happens just going throughout my day-to-day with this phone. There's just something about the screen or maybe the latest version of iOS. I don't know what it is, but there's a lot of moments where the screen becomes unresponsive, and that has been a pain point for me and something that I did not notice while using my iPhone 14 Pro Max. And another weird one, which will probably not affect most people, is the fact that this is my first iPhone that I've ever had on a charger where I've gotten the message to say that the phone is too hot and charging will resume later. I usually don't have issues with this phone getting too hot. As a matter of fact, my iPhone 14 Pro Max gets plenty hot pretty much all the time. As soon as I start doing anything on it, it's so hot to the touch that I want to put the phone down, but it's never once told me that it couldn't charge my phone due to temperature. With this phone, however, it is a message that I seem to get constantly, especially when I'm trying to charge it in the car. And again, that could just be due to materials. I don't know. But I don't know. In my opinion, I do think that this is a great little phone, even for the price, but also knowing that the 15 is just around the corner, that you can expect a price drop on this guy here, making it more affordable. Honestly, if I just wanted to sum it up, this is still a fantastic phone for people who don't care about those pro features. If you don't even know what a high refresh rate is, then you absolutely don't need to worry about upgrading to the 14 Pro Max or even buying the 13 Pro Max. If you just want a phone that works, if you just want a phone that is going to last you for extended periods of time, maybe you do shift work or something like that, and you don't always have access to a charger, this is definitely the phone for you. If you want to be able to take pictures that still just look good, you don't have to worry about editing them or anything like that, this is automatically a fantastic phone for you. And at the end of the day, it's going to give you that perfect iPhone experience, regardless of not having the latest and greatest chip. It doesn't really need that. So nobody really cares to have the latest and greatest chip when you know that this phone's going to be supported for another 4 years anyway. So that's it for me. If you got any questions about the iPhone 14 Plus or even the iPhone 14 Max, let me know down below. Much love as always, throwing up 2 of them, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.